Who are you, dog? I have no time to spend on weaklings. Disappear.
The last two Fallen Grand Hero battle units were both pretty solid, and Fallen Ashnard continues that legacy. The Mad King from Path of Radiance carries a big sword and rides an interesting dragon mount. He will be a Sword Flier in Fey with 43 HP, 37 attack, 21 speed, 35 defense, and 31 resistance. In terms of stats, Ashnard is not doing anything we haven't seen before, however Sword Flyers are much harder to come by, and tanky Sword Flyers are even rarer. He is slow with only 21 speed, but he puts a lot of those points into his other stats. 37 attack is very solid, and 35 defense paired with 31 resistance is really good for a sword unit. Pretty much any sword user with more than 30 res is in a very good spot. Ashnard's got your typical slow tank stat line, but he uses it very well thanks to his unique weapon. Gurgurant is a big sword and is another example of a simple but effective weapon. It has 16 might and grants a flat +3 defense. This brings Ashnard up to 38 defense, which is even more impressive. He's gonna love that high defense stat because Gurgurant also neutralizes effective against flyer bonuses. Basically has built-in IO's shield, which is extremely good on a tanky flying unit. This alone makes Ashnard pretty unique, and it opens up the way for some fun builds. Gurgurant will also inflict -5 attack and defense on foes within 2 spaces during combat. Altogether, this weapon is not super complicated, but man, is good for a free reward unit. With the -5 attack and defense and combat debuffs, Ashnard becomes even tankier and he just gets free damage. Unlike legendary Edelgard or Fallen Julia, Ashnard doesn't need to meet any requirements to inflict these debuffs. He will basically just have it permanently active, so you can look at Ashnard's stats. It's like he gets +5 more attack, defense, and res. This guy can actually deal good damage, and he's fairly tanky just from this weapon alone. The -5 attack and defense debuff should work like Darja's Hex, so Gurgurant can help allies. If Ashnard's teammates get into a fight and the enemy they are fighting is within 2 spaces of Ashnard, then he will debuff them, which is pretty nice. This isn't going to be a super reliable support ability, however there are some fairly standard situations where it can be applied, and we'll talk more about that during builds since we can give Ashnard additional support skills to use. Returning to his base kit, Ashnard comes with Dragon Fang. I feel like they always use these dragon specials to be thematic, but almost always they get outperformed by Bonfire and Ignis. With 38 defense thanks to Gurgurant, you may just want to rock Ignis instead. For his A skill, Ashnard has Distant Defense 3. This grants +6 defense and res when attacked by ranged foes. Obviously with good base defense and resistance and Gurgurant's -5 attack debuff, this skill only further improves Ashnard's tanking potential. Kinda sucks that he can't retaliate against those ranged foes, but we can fix that later. As for his C skill, Ashnard comes with even attack wave 3. This grants +6 attack for 1 turn to the user and adjacent allies every even numbered turn. This is a totally fine skill to keep. Ashnard has great base attack, and again Gurgurant is applying a -5 defense debuff, so that's just more damage. While most builds will focus on improving Ashnard's defense and resistance, you could just have fun with attack increasing skills to get some big damage hits in. Overall, an okay base kit, all things considered. Thanks to Gurgurant's IO shield and distant defense, Ashnard will actually just laugh off arrows, and his magic tanking potential isn't half bad either. His slow speed will mean he's gonna get doubled pretty much all the time, but that's just something you're gonna have to deal with. Should you want to merge up the Mad King, Ashnard normally gets +1 HP and +1 attack for the first merge. The neutral nature will then add +1 HP, attack, and defense. Sure, we'd love some attack or defense boons, but these are all stats Ashnard can use effectively. In terms of comparisons with other free-to-play friendly sword flyers, Ashnard is in a super solid spot. When we complain about having too many lance flyers in the game, this is part of the issue. Since launch, we've never even had a sword flyer get demoted, so for most players, Sheeta and Paula are your 2 options. Summer Fiora is a rather balanced unit with good speed, but she does lack a unique weapon. As for Ashnard, he doesn't even come close in terms of stats to these other units. He's super slow, but his attack and defense are way higher, and again, 31 resistance is super respectable on a sword unit. Ashnard immediately differentiates himself from our 3 other free-to-play options, and Gurgurant is also really good. Now some of you might be asking, what about Altina? Well, that is a fair point since she was given out as a gift, however she was actually only available for a limited time. Like if you started playing right now, you wouldn't be able to get her. Compare that to Legendary Ike, who's actually permanently available to get even if you started playing right now. For the sake of relevancy, it is worth noting that Altina is similar to Ashnard as a slow but high attack, defense, and res unit. She even gets out shield from her unique A skill. Altina is, however, kind of in her own league, thanks to Ragnar and Alande providing distant counter with dual phase brave attacks. She really is stupid strong, and Ashnard won't be able to replicate her Vantage cheese tactics. That being said, she's not easily summoned if you want to merge her up more, and while she's fun to use unmerged, if you want to plus 10 a unit, it's probably easier to get extra copies of Ashnard through heroic grails. For builds, things are going to be pretty simple. Ashnard is your typical slow tank, but his status as a free-to-play Sword Flier makes him unique, and outside of Altina, he does fill a niche for most players. Thanks to his good base attack and Gurgurant's defense debuffs, Ashnard will deal good damage, but like most slow units, you're probably still going to need quick riposte for reliable one-round KOs. He should be able to sustain quick riposte's HP range against green foes though, so that's pretty nice. If you keep Ashnard's base kit, I would just change out Dragon Fang for Bonfire or Ignis. Even with even attack wave 6 extra attack, Ignis is still going to outdo Dragon Fang slightly, and without an attack buff active, it's the most consistent choice. While distant defense is great to stop range attacks, Ashnard can't fight back anyway, so you may want to swap that out for something like Sturdy Stance or Steady Stance. Brazen attack and defense could be fun to try out as well. For B skills, you can go with Quick Riposte or other simple abilities like Guard 3 or Renewal 3. If you want to fight against these super fast Sword Lords, then Sword Breaker is decent and gives Ashnard some player phase power. Just be aware of no follow-up. Now I want to discuss the support capabilities of Gurgurant for a bit. Gurgurant can apply its in-combat debuffs to melee foes that attack allies adjacent to Ashnard. They would be within that 2 space range, while any ranged attackers are going to escape Gurgurant unless Ashnard is on the flank. For the most part, you would have Ashnard in the back, his ally in front of him, and the attacking melee foe after that. If you want to further enhance Ashnard's support abilities, he can use Ward or Gold Flyers or Close Guard. You can of course use the usual drives and spurs as well. Even attack wave is fine since Ashnard can buff up his allies with a field buff. Honestly, while this portion of Gurgurant isn't the main focus, it's something to keep in mind, and Ashnard can be quite helpful if there are a lot of melee threats on the field. Now for the main attraction, Fallen Ashnard is a fantastic distant counter user. Normally flyers aren't the best DC users because they are weak to arrows, which meant sacrificing a slot for IO's shield. With Gurgurant having built-in IO's shield, Ashnard is free to run distant counter and still have his Sacred Seal slot open for another stat boosting ability. This is awesome coming from a reward unit, and again, Gurgurant isn't some super crazy weapon, but it's simple things like this that make units interesting. Now for those wondering about distant foil, Ashnard would get extra attack and defense but lose the ability to counterattack healers and mages. To be fair, Ashnard gets a ton of defense thanks to Gurgurant, so a full physical damage tank build isn't terrible. However, this guy comes with 31 resistance, and with the -5 attack debuff from Gurgurant always active, that's gonna make it even better. I think it would be a shame not to put that res to good use, so personally I think distant counter is just a better choice for more general overall gameplay. While I think you want quick riposte in any build here, it's probably best in the B slot. The Sacred Seal slot has strong options like distant defense, defense and res bond, or these stance skills. If you want another B skill, you could give dull range a try. That would have the benefit of stopping blade toe mages from running rampant. Mystic Boost is another interesting option and would work nicely with Attack Smoke to defend against multiple threats in one turn. For other C skills, I think any Joint Hone or Joint Drive skills will be nice. For example, Joint Drive Attack can provide extra attack on top of Gurgurant's defense debuffs for a teammate. You also got Flyer mobility skills, and if you're planning on running a Ward Flyers or Gold Flyers type team, then Flyer Guidance could make Ashnard a nice anchor to work around. For the most part, distant counter is going to be the hype build for Ashnard, but he does have some decent melee focused options. Fortress Defense and Res is always fun for big numbers, and the tier 3 stance skills offer a lot of stats with Guard. Sturdy or Mirror Stance 3 would be greatly beneficial if you're worried about special procs. So should you promote Ashnard to 5 stars? He's pretty min-max, sacrificing speed for good attack, defense, and resistance. These stats then get elevated thanks to his unique weapon. Gurgurant having IO's shield with unconditional in-combat attack and defense debuffs is so dang good. This weapon plus Ashnard stats make him quite unique, and they are his main selling points. Distant defense is okay, but most likely gets replaced. Even attack wave is fine since that's just more damage for Ashnard. I would say Ashnard is worth the promotion if you want a tanky Sword Flier. Unless you have Nearest Harid, he's basically the only option, and I would say it's a bit unfair to compare him with Altina. Ashnard won't be game breaking, but like Mini Minerva, he's fairly unique stat wise for free to play options. There are literally only 3 Sword Flyers who aren't 5-star units, and Ashnard is super different from all of them. Thanks to Gurgurant, he gets to run distant counters safely, which is not something many flyers get to do. That plus his high defense and res with minus attack debuffs on the enemy makes Ashnard a really fun tank, and he'll definitely be a menace if you give him lots of investment and buffs. Since he can also help out allies with debuffs, Ashnard can be great when your team sticks together. Against melee enemies, he can provide a boost to his allies, and you should keep that in mind depending on the situation. In conclusion, I think Fallen Ashnard is pretty neat. He has some great artwork and voice lines, plus an awesome sprite too. He's not breaking the game, but he has a place for those looking for a slow Sword Flier, and if you want them to have distant counter, that's even better. I really like these units that offer simple but effective abilities. For those looking to plus 10 Ashnard, that should be a fun project in a couple months. If you really want to run the distant counter set, but don't have distant counter, you could purchase the Fey Pass in the coming weeks. Starting on May 10th, you can get Resplendent Hector, and let's be honest, for most people, he's just going to be distant counter fodder. If you are going to spend money, $10 for distant counter is probably the best deal you can get in this game. It may rival the Black Knight Burger King Value Meal Pack from back in the day. That's all I got for this video. Do let me know what you think about Fallen Ashnard and his crazy big sword. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.